Welcome back to Patient Win Insider. I'm Nick Moen, and today I'm joined by Chief Medical Officer Harry Kovelman from Myomo. He spent decades in medical affairs and med tech, and now he's helping bring MyoPro by Myomo, the myoelectric orthosis recovery device, to stroke patients who have largely been told they've gone as far as they can go. Today, we're talking about what happens when healthcare systems give up on recovery and what it takes to restore function anyways. So let's get into it. Thanks for coming on, Harry.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Well, so tell me this. You said something on our first call that stuck with me. You said patients basically get told you get what you get and you don't get upset. And so what does that mean, and how often is that the reality?
Yeah, so I'm going to talk specifically about stroke patients because that's predominantly, I would say, 95% of the myoelectric orthosis or the myopros that get fit in a month are with that diagnosis. So what happens in stroke is it's broken down into three phases, right? There's the acute, the subacute, and then there's the chronic. And the brain is really wired to do well, to give it its all in those first 6 months. It's able to rewire, reconnect. And during those first 3 months, you get back X amount of your recovery. During 3 to 6 months, you get X plus Y, although it's going down, right? After that, most people are going to regain the most function that they are going to have in that side that was affected. So whether it's the left arm, whether it's the left leg, that's it. And they're basically told you get what you get and don't get upset. The
Right.
healthcare system, the therapists, OTs, occupational therapists, physical therapists really work with them and enable them to optimize. But the brain and the electrical signals are only capable of doing so much. And at that point in time, that's their new norm. So I'm sure you've seen plenty of people, and I'm sure people who listen to your podcast have seen plenty of people that continue, they're walking around like this and they have maybe a gait problem. They can't move that leg as well as they used to. So that's where normal physical therapy and occupational therapy stops. They adapt to that new norm. They learn how to open and close a jar or pick up a pen or maybe even try to carry a laundry basket, maybe with their non-dominant arm now. And the question is, that was the state of the state 15 years ago, right? When you didn't have all these new devices and everything on the market. So should these people be afforded the opportunity to empower themselves to try to adapt with a new device and get back function that would help them regain their bimanual activities of daily living? And what I mean by that is, can they carry the laundry basket with two hands?
Right.
Can they hold an object and open up the top of the can? Can they brush their teeth again instead of using their non-dominant with their dominant? And that's where this device comes in.
Yeah. Okay. So how far does it go? I mean, they're not playing piano yet, but it's really helping improve their basic daily lives, right?
Right. So, you bring up a great point, right? So remember, the purpose of the MyoPro is to enable function to carry out the activities of daily living. Gross motor function. So bend and extend your elbow and grab and release an object, right? They're not going to get back to shooting a basketball. They're not going to get back to playing the piano. Those are all fine motor movements, right, that you need. But for basic, normal anatomical function to carry out your activities of daily living, you need more of that gross motor movement. And
Sure.
that's what this device gives you. So it's very funny you should say that, because one of the optimal discussions you need to have with patients, right? Because here they are, they've been like this for 3 or 4 years. You need to set the expectation for them that, hey, Nick, when we put this on you, you've been like this for 3 years. You're
Yeah.
not going to start playing the piano tomorrow. You're not going to start shooting a basket. Remember that brain, right, which is you get the most rewiring first those first 6 months, is not used to this. Your body's not used to moving right again. So it takes time to build up to wearing it.
Yeah. Well, this is a very patient first, angle you're taking here as far as careers go. Can you give me a version of how you got into it and what's inspiring you about this sort of work?
Yeah, you're not gonna this is you're not gonna believe this, but I hope it hits home with a lot of people. So I grew up, my dad owned gas stations on Long Island, New York. I was always working, okay. And as you know, mechanics work a lot with their hands and tools. I went to medical school, was doing my residency, and we were playing our annual softball game against the house staff.
Yeah.
And to make a long story very short, I was running down the first base line, stepped on the base. It was one of those immovable ones, like the pros. And I heard something crack. And immediately I knew I fractured my ankle, needed two malleolar screws. And I had a step out of my residency for 3 to 6 months. And during that time, a very innovative, forward thinking pediatric orthopedic surgeon came down from Toronto to the University of Maryland, and he introduced a new revolutionary technique to North America, which was called the Elizarov technique. It corrected deformities and lengthened limbs in children and
Wow.
adults. And it was an external fixator where you had to use a lot of nuts, bolts, wires, tightening screws. And it became second nature to me. And the company that my surgeon was working with said, "Hey, how would you like to get on the other side of this and not maybe be a practicing physician, but be a chief medical officer or get into medical affairs?" I'm like, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And so that was 25 years ago. I turned the switch, went over to not the commercial side, but the device pharmaceutical side. And really, it was revolutionizing to me. It created a 180-degree swing. Medicine was changing. You had to be very defensive. It wasn't as intuitive when I was in the hospital.
Sure.
And this was the best of all worlds. I got to work with marketing. I got to understand profit and loss. I got to understand, working with a board, the stock market, as well as stay very forward facing on the medical side, right?
Right.
Because I'm working with all these doctors throughout the world in all different therapeutic areas. So that's how I got into medical affairs. And if I had to do it again, I do it the exact same way. I love what I do. I love all the people I work with. It's really enlightening. And yeah, I wouldn't trade it in.
Wow. Well, that's inspiring. Let me. How did Myomo come into the picture then?
Yeah, so chief medical officers, now that we're going career here a little, right? Chief medical officers usually hang around maybe 3 to 5 years at a position. Once you accomplish your goals, you've hit your objectives, it's always nice to hand it off to whoever's next so their career can grow. I was in an organization prior to Myomo where that was occurring. Somebody called me from a recruiting company and said, "Hey, this company up here, they're looking for somebody. I think you may be a good fit." I said, "Okay, I'm all ears." I met with Paul Gadonis, our chief executive officer. It was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. Really enjoyed it. And I liked where the organization was, and I liked where they needed to go.
Okay.
So that was one. And two, I always like when it solves an unmet need. And if you think about all these people, the incidents of stroke, those people who were out there who could benefit, I really felt that my skill set and what their objectives were a good match.
Right.
I committed to 5 years and I'm already past that. I love what we do. I love the organization and I love the forward thinkingness of the board and the people that are there.
So, and can you walk through exactly what the MyoPro device does?
Yes. So the MyoPro device is a myoelectric orthosis. So think of it as it's a brace, okay? And it goes on your upper extremity. So it goes on your upper arm and your forearm, and it has a little device that goes around your fingers. And inside the cuffs are what we call myoelectric sensors. They pick up the signals that your brain is sending down to your arm to move it. Okay.
Yeah,
And remember, when we initially started out, I told you that the people with stroke, that signal has been cut off or it's diminished because the stroke took place someplace inside the brain, right? So what happens, let's say your muscle, the signal should be one is you have no signal, five is you have a great signal. The people that have had the stroke, their signals are very low, one, maybe two. So when it tells the brain says the message, move, it can't do it. It
yeah,
can't activate. So these sensors that are in the cuff, they pick up this signal and they magnify the signal up to 100,000 times and convert the signal to a movement in the motor at the elbow and the hand. So
yeah,
think of it like, hey Nick, you want to go see a concert? I'm going to give you 2 tickets. Sorry, but you're in the nosebleed section.
sure,
You're probably not going to hear the concert.
right,
Okay. If I say, Nick, I'm going to give you 2 floor seats, what you hear down here versus what you hear up here is much different.
yeah,
When those sensors pick up that signal and convert it, it is the patient who is sending the signal that activates it. So they have control. They have
wow,
volitional control to move the brace themselves. And that's how it works. So if the people have a really bad signal, we can increase it. If they have a mild signal or a moderate signal, we only increase it a little. So we have the ability to control the temperature, so to speak, of how much we have to magnify the signal. The device works by, it has a motor at the elbow, so it flexes and extends. So if you want to, here's my cell phone. I
sure,
have a stroke. If I wanted to pick it up, I would have to bend down like this to get it.
yeah,
When you have the MyoPro, and you say, all right, I want to pick up my cell phone, I'm going to open my elbow. It will open it up, you grasp it, and then you can bring it back to you. You don't
wow,
have to cheat and go like this. If you want to open up a bottle top, you can hold it in one hand, with the MyoPro, and then
yeah,
open with your good hand. You don't have to put it like this because you have a stroke and go like, if you want to brush your teeth, you can pour on the toothpaste, bring it up, and then brush your teeth.
wow,
So it's really like when I say to you, it's empowering to these individuals who haven't moved their limb for years.
right, yeah,
And that's how it works.
wow, that's incredible.
They
It
also they
it
have
sounds
an app on
expensive.
their phone. They have
Yeah.
an app on their phone so they can control and the physician can see everything as well. It's
So
really cool.
how new is like the app technology and integration with smart devices?
So the app just came out last month. It's a
Cool.
monumental step. Before we used to hand out laptops so they could connect.
Sure.
We now moved into the 21st century and we have an app. It was the next step.
Yeah.
And then the device will evolve over time as well.
Yeah. That's incredible. It sounds expensive. How do people pay? Like, is insurance covering it, or what's the landscape of that?
Yeah, so that's a great question because that's where the rubber hits the road, right? So the device itself is, I would say, not cheap, right? And most payers to date, I'm going to separate the payers. I'm going to separate the payers into traditional Medicare coverage, Medicare Advantage, and then commercial line. Okay, so if you have traditional Medicare,
Okay.
Medicare covers the device on a case by case basis as long as you meet medical necessity criteria,
Gotcha.
which over the past 2 years since we've been submitting to Medicare, they've covered the brace 98.6% of the times.
Awesome.
Okay. Medicare Advantage plans, and I'm not telling anything to your listeners that they probably don't know, but in case they don't, Medicare Advantage plans have been all over the news because they don't want to pay, right?
Right.
I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So Medicare Advantage plans will look at it a little differently. Even though we believe as an organization that Medicare Advantage plans are required to cover the same basic coverage as traditional Medicare, most of the time they do not. So some Medicare Advantage organizations will cover and some won't.
Yeah.
Okay. Then we get into commercial. Commercial's a whole other ball game because it's a different population age wise. It's the same with them. You have to meet the criteria for medical necessity. You have to make sure that it's not classified as experimental or investigational. And then if you meet that criteria, they will approve it. A lot of times we will submit, or you can submit and they deny it, then you can appeal it. Okay. And
Yeah.
then they deny it. But there's a lot of different ways to skin the cat because, like with Medicare Advantage plans, we can take it all the way through to what's called an administrative law judge hearing,
Okay.
where you get on a hearing with a judge, you present your case, the Medicare Advantage plan presents their case, and then the judge decides
Wow.
if you're entitled
Yeah.
to get it. It's really, I do 10 to 20 a month
Wow.
administrative law judge hearings. So it's really it depends on who the carrier is.
Yeah. And what are they looking for? I mean, how do you know that, you'd be qualified, I guess?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So medical necessity is determined holistically by CMS, by Medicare, and saying, you have to meet a certain criteria. What's your diagnosis? Of what's your diagnosis? Have you tried other therapies to help you regain your motion?
Right.
What are those therapies? Are you a candidate for the device? So, for example, if the person had a stroke and they're like this, but maybe cognitively, they're not able to put on or put off the brace, put on and take off the brace because of the stroke, if they don't have the correct support, if there's a contraindication, like if they have what's called a fixed contracture, they can't move,
Yeah.
we can't put the brace on them. If they don't have that EMG activity that our senses can't pick up that EMG activity, we
Yeah.
can't put it on because then they won't be able to move the brace. So as long as you can fit the criteria for medical necessity, you're a candidate. Then it goes into whether the payer considers your device what we call E&I, experimental and investigational. And
Right.
that's a lot of times a way, in all honesty, in all transparency, it's a way out.
Yeah.
They say, well, we don't think your literature is good enough.
Right.
And that happens.
And who are you typically connecting with? I mean, is this an OT as kind of a resource for referring to Myomo, or who are you trying to connect with?
So great question, right? So there's direct to consumer, right? Which
Right.
a lot of our people may see the ads on Facebook, Instagram, or maybe they know somebody who got a MyoPro. Occupational therapists by far and away treat the most amount of upper extremity stroke patients. Believe it or not, family practitioners, internal medicine. Why? Because 90% of the time after that acute and subacute phase where they see a specialist like a neurologist or a physiatrist,
Yeah.
okay, once they're out into the community and they're not having any other problems like tone and or spasticity, 90% of these people see their family practitioner because they
Right.
go every 6 months for their
Sure.
medications and they have a lot of other comorbidities going on. Neurologists are up there, but I would say the main focus is the consumer, the OT, the family practitioner, physiatry, and neurology.
And you said one main way you're reaching them is, Facebook, Instagram. Are there other ways that have been effective in connecting? Because, I mean, you're probably not, what percentage of stroke patients that would be, in contention for getting this device covered? Like, what percentage are actually aware or have the devices?
So you're asking the medical guy. I would hope the marketing person should probably
Right.
be able to
Yeah.
answer that question a little better. I would tell you that in the 21st century today, in 2026 versus 2000, okay,
Yeah.
most patients' self-awareness of what's going on them in innovative technology is very high because of laptops, their phones. They walk in with a piece of paper and they'll go, "Hey, doc, am I a good candidate for this?" Unless you have a clinical team, which are called medical science liaisons, clinical science liaison, that's going out there and developing an ecosystem and talking directly with OTs, PTs, physiatrists, family practitioners, neurologists about your device,
Yeah.
awareness is down. So we have a clinical team. They're developing that ecosystem and they're doing a really good job with it.
Cool. Cool. And what about from a medical perspective? Like, what does growth look like there?
So, wow, 800,000 people have a stroke every year is the incidence. A third, unfortunately, don't make it, right?
Right.
Two-thirds do. And then a third of those go on, probably 80% of those that do go on to have an upper extremity problem.
Sure.
So if you look at that, you can say the amount of people who possibly would be optimal candidates for this device that have no contraindications. God, I would hate to tell you what the number could be. It could
Right.
be anywhere from X to Y based on if they meet the criteria.
And is there more that could be developed that you see potential excitement? There's potential excitement about how the device could go further than where it is now.
So, yeah, there's a lot being done in the world of EMGs and coordinating the activity. A lot of the researchers, like the University of Utah and others, are looking on ways not only to listen to one muscle signal, but listen to numerous, because it's not just one muscle that moves you, it's multiple muscles. So there's a whole research area there. There's wireless EMG technology. It's moving at such a rapid pace. For a perfect example, when you watch the Paralympics, right, and you watch those guys with and ladies as well with the prosthetics.
Yeah.
Remember what it used to be 20 years ago and where it is today.
Right.
You also see prosthetic hands now with 5 fingers and being able to move it. The whole world of myoelectric technology is zooming along. So
Yeah.
I would anticipate that the devices will get sleeker, they'll get faster, they'll adapt better, or maybe they'll self-adapt instead of having an OT or a physician change the fields.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is really evolving right now.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's definitely considering the patient and being developed specifically for, for helping them, which is yeah, it's a game changer. I'm curious, in your position as chief medical officer, like what it's healthcare system seems like kind of a high friction, fast paced world. Like what are you doing to stay sane and to stay organized in it?
So it's a very good question. So myself, remember, each one of these devices is custom fabricated to fit the individual, right? So I try to keep the blinders on.
Yeah.
Personally, I like being involved in my position as well as knowing what's going on in the community, healthcare community, reimbursement, down on the hill, the most technology, how is advancing. Outside of that time, for
Yeah.
me, I detach.
Right.
I think it's very, very important today, speaking to a lot of my colleagues, your position can engulf you,
Yeah.
can take you in and draw you in, and you could, I don't want to say eat, dot, and sleep at 24 hours a day, right?
Right.
That's not good for you. That's not good for any executive. It has to be a really nice balance, and I try to maintain that balance. I myself, I have 7 children, right, and grandchildren.
Yeah.
I like my time. I like to shut down. I'll work as hard as I can for the hours that I can. And, I'll travel when need be, but I find that you have to shut it down. You have to
Yeah.
disconnect.
Well, focus, right? It's all about focusing on what you're there to do.
Absolutely.
Harry, hey, I really appreciate you sharing your story, your background, and your journey into this very important patient first care. Is there any way? What would be the best way for people to follow along and learn more about Myomo?
Yeah. So I would say probably the ultimate way is just get on www.myomo.com. Everything you need to know is right there. There's a way to connect. You can, if you watch, if you have your phone, Instagram, Facebook, there's ways to connect there. And last but not least, you can always send an email into the company and we will answer you as soon as we get it. So I've really enjoyed today. First time I'm on a podcast. So thank you for the invitation. And if there's anything I can do for you, or if you get any inquiries, you know how to get a hold of me, and I'd be more than happy to help.
Amazing. Thanks, Harry. Yeah, we'll put all the links in the show notes. And once it goes up, if people reach out, we'll send them your way. So I really appreciate having you on and sharing your insights. It was really, really captivating and inspiring. So we'll see you next time on Patient Win Insider.